Hello, collectors. Welcome to another episode of Collector to Collector. And I have got a longtime member of the YouTube community, Sports Card Hall of Famer, Miss none other than Mr. Bowman 53. So stick around and let's dive in to Mr. Bowman 53.
Welcome to For Collectors.
All right, welcome Alex to episode of Collector to Collector. Are you feeling ready for this?
I am so ready, John. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you. If any of you out there aren't aware, you should be subscribed to Bowman 53. He's basically the intro show to our live stream weekly. We're kind of got this partnership synergy going on where he does his show and then not a show.
That's right.
Yeah. Then it leads in, they come right over and then we take them for a spin the next hour. So, but great to have you on. So let's just roll right into this. We're trying to get to know Alex as well as Bowman 53. We see on the channel. Let's start out, how did it all start for you athletically? Like what sports did you participate in as a kid? Were you particularly excel at anything or, did you just do it for the love?
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of sports, a lot of neighborhood stuff with kids, just that I hung out with, basketball, hockey. I mean, pretty much you name it. But the thing I liked playing most was baseball for sure. It was kind of like I think back on it, I realized it was very much like Sandlot. Like I didn't grow up in the 60s, but I definitely learned how to play baseball like through neighborhood kids that were older and better at it than I was. And I really got like into baseball through them. And then I joined like organized baseball as a kid. So I really loved playing that. And that's where like card collecting started for me too, because they were all into cards and gave me some of theirs, and that got me started on cards as well.
All right. So speaking of cards, then how did all that collecting start with you? Like, what was your first sets, or how did things get rolling there?
Yeah, I mean, I got into baseball in, I guess it was '87, because I remember all the wood bordered '87 tops, and I remember getting packs and trading cards with friends, and I was a Phillies fan, and '87 was right smack dab in the middle of like terrible baseball for the Phillies. So I was like asking friends for forgettable players because I wanted the Phillies guys. But yeah, so I got into it then, and I guess I kind of stuck with it up into the early '90s, kind of off and on, and was still playing baseball through that time period too. And my dad actually once went to a flea market and came home with a bunch of vintage stuff and gave it to me. And I had never seen any of it before. It was 53 tops, 54 Bowman, and 53 Bowman 2. And that's like, I didn't realize it at the time. I wasn't that excited about those. I was probably like 12 or 13 at the time, but I hung on to them. And then I don't know, 20 years later, I found them again. And that's how I got into vintage, basically.
So there were gap years after your teenage years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess I probably stopped playing baseball somewhere towards the end of high school, and all the collecting and stuff like that stopped then. I think that's pretty common. And I honestly kind of forgot about it. And I had a friend that I went to college with, and this was like maybe 6, 7 years ago. He was talking about how he had gotten into collecting. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And a few years later, I found myself looking up cars and sort of getting back into it.
So we talking this started up again like in the 2010s? Is that how?
Yeah. Yeah, like
Okay.
somewhere like 20, maybe even 2015, 2016.
Okay. So then by then, yeah, you have the world open to you at that
Yeah.
point with
Yeah,
eBay and everything. Yeah.
right.
And
And so easy to like learn about all this stuff. Whereas before, you had to, I don't know, you had to know people or you had to read, I don't know, digests or whatever. But with the internet, it just made everything so much faster.
oh yeah. And so, what, was there some particular moment where you just became obsessed then with the 53 Bowman? Or I mean, what was the trigger opener there?
Yeah, I mean, my friend. So I was talking to my friend. I was like really kind of intrigued by what he was talking about, but he was more on the modern side. Um, and just talking to him about it, I was overwhelmed by how much you seem to have to know about it. And as I was kind of looking at the cards, I was reading about it and looking at it, and I was going on eBay and looking around, but I wasn't quite sure how to get started. And in the meantime, I was collecting autographed baseballs. Like that's like a whole other story. But I was collecting baseballs at the time, and I was like, I'm interested in cards, but I don't quite know how to get into it. And that's around that time that I found those cards that my dad had gifted me way, way back. And I got really intrigued by the 53 Bowman cards. And I started looking those up and I was like, gosh, every one of these I look up, I really like. And at some point, I just found myself always looking at those cards. So I was like, it was as simple as that. I was like, I'm going to go after that set and kind of pick up where my dad got me started, when I was 12.
So, I mean, was this ended up being like mad dash obsessively only that set for a period of time? I mean,
Yeah, it was. I kind of decided, honestly, partially because I didn't really know that much about vintage, and I was still learning about all the sets and cards out there and all of that sort of thing. I thought, well, for now, I'm just going to really focus on building this set. I know I like this set, and I'll go after that. And as I'm doing that, I made my channel. I started like meeting other folks in the community, watching their videos, and I started learning more and more about vintage. But you're right. I did like totally like it was just those 53 Bowman color cards. And after a while, some of the members of our community, I remember like Mike Baseball Collector was like, is that the only thing you collect? I was like, yep, that's it. And it was kind of nice because I just knew that that's what I was going after for a while. But by the time I was finished with that set, I had learned so much more about what else was out there, and I knew what I wanted to go after once it was done.
all right. And I've never seen you show any of the black and white. Do you have that set as well?
No, I mean technically, yeah, that's part of that year for sure. But I'm not that interested in the black and white. I do have the Casey Stengel. I do like that card, and there's probably some others in there that I would like to have at some point. But I'm just not as drawn to that part of the set.
Which is common with most people.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially since it doesn't really have any of the large stars. I mean, there's a couple Hall of Famers, but minor ones.
that's
So
right.
yeah. So since then, where is your collecting gone with vintage?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of all over the place, but in a way that I find really fun. So I've got pre-war, which is what I've kind of thought I was going to focus just on that when I finished the Bowman set, but I'm also doing, I'm really like all over, like pre-war. I'm kind of mostly in the 50s, but I've got other stuff in the 30s and 40s, and eventually I want to get into the 60s and 70s too. But I like it took me a while to decide like I'm not doing player run-ins, I'm not doing, team sets or Hall of Famers or any of that sort of thing. It's just like whatever card I like, honestly. It's kind of as simple as that. But I do tend to I like the 50s, and I like those New York teams, the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. So I kind of tend to lean towards those. And I guess I have that PC going, but aside from that, it's kind of all over.
All right. So I do have to ask one question that I haven't gotten to the root of. What is the fascination with the Eddie Waitkus?
Oh yeah,
Why has that always come up?
yeah. I honestly don't even know. I think on the Sunday night stream, like early on, like Eddie Waitkus was a topic of conversation for some reason. Like it just came up, and every now and then on the live stream, we'll go on eBay and look up cards, and for some reason, for like 2 or 3 Sundays in a row, Eddie Waitkus kept coming up, or somebody would show an Eddie Waitkus card, and then it just became this thing like, oh, we have to talk about Eddie Waitkus. And now it's like I don't even know that it's like way past the point of not being funny, but it still comes up. Like somebody has to say something about Eddie Waitkus. Um, and the crazy thing is I don't have an Eddie Waitkus card, and I need to get one. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's just we can't shake that Eddie Waitkus joke.
Well, now knowing you don't even own one is it makes it funnier to me.
Yeah,
But so you want to show some of the cards that are kind of representatives of your collection, then?
for sure. So I got to start with the Bowman set because that's where it all started. And I honestly just opened up. So I have a box with all the cards from that set, and I honestly just randomly picked cards. So these are, it looks like mostly common cards. Here's a Pittsburgh Pirate, Clem Koshorik. And the thing I like about these cards is I really truly like all of these cards. Here's Willie Puddinhead Jones. Shout out to Wesker Griff out there who loves this guy. Here's a fantastic name for a baseball player, Jack Daniels.
Oh yeah,
Boston Braves, or actually they had just moved to Milwaukee, but they still had Boston hats on. Here's Roy McMillan making a fantastic play that totally looks realistic, not staged at all.
absolutely.
And then the only Hall of Famer I pulled was the Skill Hodges. But so those are the Bowman cards I pulled. Let's see. How about some pre-war? This is a card I just got fairly recently, 33 Gaudy of Paul Richards. Love this card. Here is a M101-4 of Connie Mack in his dugout.
Cool.
And let's see, how about an old Judge? Here's an old Judge of Marty Sullivan. So all these cards are just cards that jump out at me, cards that I like the look of, or I like the story behind. A couple of common cards. Irv Narine from 53 Tops. Now, this is not a card that is, a big name or a rookie star or anything like that, but I just like the look of the card. This card has some hobby significance. Card number 1 from 52 Tops, Andy Pafko. But I mostly got it because of the connection to Brooklyn. And then how about some 50 stuff? 58 Tops, Aaron and Mantle. How about Roy Campanella, 51 Bowman? Always love that shot. And I could keep going, but how about a 54 Red Heart of Minnie Minoso? So pretty all over the place, but love all these cards.
Oh yeah, definitely the best looking dog food set of all time.
Yeah.
But so that's the one thing I was wondering. There does seem to be a lot of New York, Brooklyn thing going on. It is, but you grew up near Philly, right? So what's the whole New York connection then?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely love collecting Philly stuff. And I do have a number of like Philly related memorabilia. The New York thing honestly probably started when I was a kid watching the Ken Burns documentary. There's a huge part of that documentary that really focuses on New York and Brooklyn. And I think they did it because they knew, and I didn't know this when I was watching it as a kid, but they knew that that story was going to like pay off in terms of just being like really dramatic because the team leaves and it's really sad. I didn't see that coming. And I kept like, as a kid, I was so confused. It's like, wait, they're in Brooklyn, but the Dodgers are in Los Angeles. Like that like blew my mind. I didn't know that that was even a thing. And the same with the Giants, of course. So I was always kind of fascinated about that. And just the idea that baseball could change or that it wasn't always the way that I had known it as a kid. And then I lived in New York for like 10 years. I'm in Savannah now, but I lived in New York and went to a bunch of Mets games, went to a bunch of Yankees games, but I always like felt the history of what had happened there. And I lived in Brooklyn and, you know, went to see where Ebbets Field had been and the Polo Grounds and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, there was just something about it that I really felt connected to or just interested in, I guess. And so, I mean, that's part of the history that I just enjoy reading about a lot. So I really enjoy reading books, watching documentaries about that time period in particular. So yeah, like I don't have any relatives that were, you know, that saw those games or anything like that. It's just something that I find fascinating. There's so many great players and stories and they're all kind of interconnected from that time period.
All right. Yeah, I was a little older when the Ken Burns came out, and growing up, about 10 miles away from Candlestick Park, my first 10 years, I kind of knew how
You
that was going to turn out. So, um, but yeah, that the Ken Burns documentary was so well made. So,
right.
it's one of those things I go back to it, every year or two.
Yeah,
I'll
for sure.
watch the whole thing. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. It's funny, I know like I think Ray from Philly will watch it like just before or like in the winter, like when you're kind of like missing baseball, you want to kind of get back in the swing of things. Yeah.
all right. So then YouTube, what was the impetus for deciding to start a YouTube channel and spread your messaging to the world on the Bowman 53 cards?
Yeah, yeah. That was back in, I'd have to go look. It was like 2018 or something like that. I have to go check. But I originally made the channel not knowing about the baseball card community. I thought I'm going to make these really short videos for every single card in the 53 set, and I honestly was just kind of messing around. I thought like I'll make a different video for each one. Each one will look a little different, have a different piece of music on it, and I'll put it on YouTube and see if anybody is interested. And it didn't even occur to me that there was like people making baseball card videos or that there was even a community out there. And so I put it out there, and then I would get like a couple comments here and there, and then I'd go look at those people's channels. It's like, oh, they're collecting baseball cards, and then it just like occurred to me, like, oh gosh, I should be typing in 1953 Bowman, see who else might be collecting this set and making videos. And sure enough, like that was it. Like I found, everybody out there making videos, and a lot of the people that I found at the time are not necessarily making videos anymore. So some of us. Some YouTubers will stick around for a couple years. Some YouTubers just keep going strong. Like, some of the first people I found, Mike Baseball Collector, Ray from Philly, Pepino Man, like those guys have been doing it for a long time. But yeah, I suddenly realized like, oh, like there's other people out here doing this, and they weren't, making weird little short videos. Like they were on camera talking and showing cards and explaining things. And I was like, oh, like there's a whole way this works, like mail days and video responses and all that kind of stuff. It's like it was kind of fun to discover that because I hadn't even realized that that was going on. So yeah, it just kind of fell right into it.
Well, I mean, watching yours, it's like you've made these little mini documentaries for every card. And it's amazing to me that, you'd put in the work to go through your entire set like that. So, um, clearly a labor of love for that baseball card set. So, um, do you
Yeah.
have some kind of experience with some kind of video production? Is that,
Yeah. So I'm a filmmaker, mostly independent, and but for my paycheck, because there's no money in that field.
yeah.
For my paycheck, I teach at a local school, and mostly focusing on editing. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing. Well, I'm not doing it on a daily basis. I'm helping my students do it, but in my free time, that's what I'm doing as well.
Okay. Yeah, because you definitely see that watching your stuff, there's somebody with some experience of how those things are supposed to be formatted and transitions visually and the audio just all clicking. I mean,
Right.
very well made. So,
Right. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just fun, right? John, I know you have a lot of stuff in there where you've got a lot of like references to stuff in pop culture that'll show up at the right time, right? And I'm gonna guess you enjoy like figuring all that out. It's kind of like part of the fun of having a channel is figuring out your way of doing stuff and putting it together.
oh yeah. Yeah, I kind of like to either throw in jokes that are relevant at the time or even poking fun at myself at times or
Right.
yeah, or things I wished I would have said, kind of expressing them that way as well. So,
Right. Right.
but uh, yeah, so 6 years is quite the run there, and then you've been going then with this live stream for over 2 years now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. It's when it first started, it was just kind of random. Like I might do it one day and then not for a week or sometimes even a month. I think sometimes I would take off. It wasn't regular. And then at some point it it became regular. I think it kind of bounced around a little bit too, and then finally kind of settled on Sunday at 8. And the only reason it settled on that was because my girlfriend sort of became used to the idea that like that's when the live stream is. It's like, okay, well then I'm just gonna stick with that because we're not gonna have to like have conversations about it. Um and yeah, it's been going ever since.
Oh yeah, and we saw you there. You're already pulling the vintage audience, and it kind of worked for us in our schedule to then
Right,
follow up behind you. We definitely didn't want to step on your toes and ever overlap,
right.
but we saw that you were typically ending right about an hour, sometimes barely over. So we figured,
Yeah.
you know, it would work. So, and now I do feel like we've kind of got this thing going where we're becoming sort of the vintage card folks Sunday night, hangout between the two of us. So,
Yeah, I always hear that from people, like, whether it's in a comment or just like in texting or whatever, just that people look forward to Sunday night. So I think that's pretty awesome.
yeah, we're definitely liking the partnership sort of we've got
Yeah.
going there with that. So, um, you know, clearly you're able to make that arrangement to do it yourself every week. Theo and I were not, so that's why we ended up with more partners, but a
Smart. Yeah.
little more family obligations, I think,
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
our
Well, that's
sides.
true. Yeah, like I'm not at that level yet. I'm sure once that happens, it'll change everything.
Oh yeah, it totally changes everything. But uh, you know, anything else you feel like YouTube has done for you? With like, if you hadn't have joined YouTube, how much different would all of this be for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think I don't know, every time I hear from folks that start channels, or there are plenty of people that don't start channels, but they're still in the community commenting and like joining live streams and stuff. It's so much more fun to get to chat with other people about what you're collecting and hear about different approaches. Um, when I first started the Bowman set, at least the first, not that much, like maybe the first 12 or 15 cards I had gotten before I was in this community. I didn't even know about it. And the cards would come in the mail and I'd be like pumped to get the card. And I'd just be like hanging out by myself. Like, this is a cool card. I've got nobody to share the excitement with. My girlfriend would be like, "Hey, that's cool," but she's not into cards, and I don't blame her. There's something about the hobby that I think like it can be you can have a good experience on your own. It can be a solitude kind of experience, but I think there's something more exciting about getting to share it with other people, and that's, to me, that's what YouTube. It doesn't have to be YouTube; it can be Instagram or Twitter or whatever, but just getting to share with other people makes it so much more fun. And not only that, but you're going to see different people's approaches that maybe you never would have thought of. There's stuff in my collection that I have basically just because somebody blew me away when I saw it on their channel. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that card existed. And it totally fits with my PC. And now I'm going to go after it. Yeah, I don't think I would have had as much fun, and I don't think I'd be as happy with my collection if I hadn't joined YouTube.
Well, I can definitely see, with you just looking for interesting cards, no matter who it is. I mean, it's definitely, seeing other people show different cards is going to open up so many more possibilities. As someone, myself, I got the narrow focus of trying to get one of every Hall of Famer. So then I
Right.
can just look at, trading card database and scan through each Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But yeah, you all of a sudden somebody's going to show something on screen. It's like, that's awesome. I have to have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It does work that way sometimes. Definitely.
yeah. So, and I'm guessing too, there's been, relationships that at this point opened up because of YouTube that never would have existed. And
For sure. I mean, I remember like one of my first jobs out of college. It's kind of random. I'm trying to remember the context, but somebody at like one of my colleagues, we were talking about this, and we were just talking about how as you get older, it gets harder and harder to make friends. Like when you're a kid, you can make a friend with anybody. Like, it's like, oh, you have a baseball, I have a glove, let's play. Like, you can just you can just be friends with anybody when you're a kid. And then like
oh
as
yeah,
you get older, it gets harder and harder. Um, but one of the cool things about this is such a great way to break the ice. Like, everybody's into cards. Like, we all like stuff differently, maybe, or different eras or whatever. But um, a lot of the folks that I've connected with, and I'm sure it's the same for you, like, we don't necessarily collect the same way or want the same things, but we just like the baseball cards became a way for us to just chat about other stuff too. And after a while, it's not even necessarily about the cards. The cards is the glue, I guess, but it's just a way to meet people and just have conversations. And before you know it, like, you're sharing stuff, like you're sharing life stuff. And sometimes it's happy news, and sometimes it's like, hey, I need some advice, or I'm in, I need a hand or whatever. And it's just life. But it's cool that like so many of these folks that I love talking to are people that I met through YouTube, which is like, I never would have expected that like 6, 7 years ago. That would have sounded strange to me, but now that I'm in it, it's it's great. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. It's like so all these people you text with every day, you met them through the internet. That's
Yeah, exactly. And
like,
half of them, like, I haven't actually met in person yet. That's
oh
gonna
yeah.
change at, like, the national, but yeah.
Oh yeah. And oh yeah, so everybody, this is gonna air after the national, but I'm recording this before.
Oh, okay.
So Alex and I are actually going to be in the same house, so maybe we need to get some bonus footage for this episode that we record at the house. So,
There you go, yeah.
but yeah. So, anything else you want to share? Collecting anything before I give you my list of random questions?
Um, Trying to think. Yeah, no, I think whether it's, like, making a video, or doing a live stream, it's always just fun to get to, um, chat it up with folks, and sometimes it's people that you know are going to show up or that you know are going to comment, and sometimes new people. Like I just got a comment like yesterday, I think, from a YouTuber that I did not know that said, "Hey, I just stumbled upon your channel, and now I'm having a conversation with somebody that's new, at least new to me, and I think that's really cool. Just and for anybody that's out there that's debating it, you can just put yourself out there, whether it's chatting in a live stream or making your own channel, and it's a great way to just connect with folks. And over the long run, you're going to find like-minded people.
Oh yeah, and no matter how awful you think that first video or 10 videos or 20 videos are, eventually you get used to talking to a camera and
Yeah, right, right.
not a person. So it does take time. I mean, I just checked my video 10 months ago because that's the YouTube All-Star voting was actually 10 months ago. He pushed it forward a little bit, and it's like I looked at that video this morning and like I was still pretty wooden then. So
Yeah, I know for a lot of people, like getting on and putting your face on screen is tough, which I get, but after a while, you just kind of forget about it.
oh yeah. All right. Well, let's hit you with some questions here. You have a favorite movie?
The first Star Wars, like the original Star Wars, definitely favorite movie. Love it.
In the original cut where,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Han clearly shot first.
Yes, totally, John. Absolutely. No CG for me.
Oh yeah, the one that you can get on the VHS tape still. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah. Do you have a favorite school subject?
Favorite school subject. I mean, everybody's probably gonna say gym, but and I love gym, but history. I loved history. Um, which I guess is not too surprising with all the baseball stuff.
I was 100% expecting that answer from you. Anything else would have been shocking, honestly. So,
Biology, yeah.
you have a favorite food?
Um, I mean, I should probably say cheesesteak. Although, like sometimes cheesesteak, I don't know. I'm not a big like um, cheese whiz fan, so I would prefer provolone. But yeah, cheesesteak is good for me.
All righty. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I sincerely wanted to be a baseball player, and for a while there, the fantasy was alive, and then and then like maybe when I was like 17 or 16, 17 years old, I started realizing that like the guys I was playing with were way better than I was. And like in retrospect, it was because they were all taking it seriously. And I was just like showing up like the first day, like, hey, let's play baseball. But they were like working out and training and stuff. It's like the lines diverged quickly. But yeah, I really wanted to play baseball.
All right. Who's the most famous person you've ever encountered?
Oh, um, not the most famous person, but I'll tell this story because I think it's funny. When I was a kid, my dad took me to my first Phillies game at the Vet, and afterwards, we went back around to the parking lot. And I don't know how my dad figured this out, but this is where all the players were going to exit, and so we were going to get autographs. And I wish we had had a baseball, but my dad just had some paper or whatever, and like index cards. We were getting autographs, and I didn't recognize any of the players because they weren't wearing their uniforms. I was like, "Who's this guy?" And they were like just signing it. I was like, "Oh, that was Von Hayes." But the funniest one in retrospect was some guy grabbed it and signed his name, and I looked at it and it had his name, and then underneath it, it said in quotations, Philly Fanatic. And I was like, but that's not the Philly Fanatic. The Philly Fanatic is a big green Muppet. Like, I hadn't put two and two together. Like, it was like discovering that Santa Claus wasn't real.
At what age was that again?
Oh gosh, I was like 6 or 7, something like that. Maybe a little too old to like not put it together as quickly as I should have.
Okay. Do you have a favorite song?
Man, that's always tough. My favorite band growing up was REM. Probably one of their songs. Yeah.
All right. If you could have any superhero power, what would you choose?
Superhero power. Oh, I gotta come up with something clever. I can't think of anything. It would have to be something like related to grading, like the ability to anticipate the grade before I send it in and be correct. I think everybody would love to have that power, right?
Well, it depends on what company you're sending to, how successful you can be with that one, right?
Yes.
All right. So, excluding dogs and cats, because that's too easy of an answer, what is your favorite animal?
I can tell you what my least favorite animal is. That's raccoons. I've been fighting raccoons in my backyard. My favorite animal. Um, Shoot, and it can't be a dog or a cat. Maybe a wolf, so they can come take care of these raccoons for me.
Okay. You want an ally.
Yes.
All right. If you had the ability to experience the day in a life of any person throughout history, you'd have their knowledge and abilities so that you could do what they can do and you'd be able to experience how that feels. You know, the example I usually give is your prime Michael Jordan, and then you're suddenly for that day the best basketball player on earth.
I think it has to be Babe Ruth. Like, I mean, the guy was a great baseball player. Get to be in Yankee Stadium, see all those other players, be the great player on the field, and then go out all these crazy parties and, like do all this stuff, knowing that the media is not going to say anything about it because you're allowed to get away with murder, basically. Yeah, I think that would be fun.
A good additional part of that answer that you get cover from the media to just do whatever. All right, in our our era of everyone being scrutinized for every
Yeah,
second of their life, that's
exactly.
what the heroes were allowed to stay heroes back in those days.
Right.
So if you could rewind everything, not just be Bowman 53, that can't be your name, what would you actually, call your channel? This is your final question here.
Wow. I for a while, way back, I did have some other names in mind, but I don't remember what they are, or what they were. Um, yeah, I don't have a name, but maybe it would be sorry about the glare. Just because I keep thinking of that phrase lately, and it's been coming up a lot, and I don't think anyone's used that for a channel name, and it would be a good one.
It would be funny for those who love the, subtle sarcasm. Some people, it's like, what the hell is this channel? Whoosh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's okay.
All right. So, all right. There's my questions. It was great to have you on the show. It'll be great to meet you here soon, which will be in the past when this actually shows.
That's right. Little time travel. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, John.
Yeah, but I had to pick a time that would work to actually record this since it's due the couple days after I land back in town. So
Right.
got to plan things out a little bit. But any last words for the folks at home?
No, this was awesome. And thanks for having me on. Had a great time.
So did I. It's always great to meet people, and I'll get to actually shake your hand soon. So
Very
that'll
true.
be even better. So everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on For Collectors.